that governments are causing inflation by printing money. They used to call the inflation they were creating deflation. This is the ongoing coverage of how the language is being used to cover the fact that governments are causing inflation by printing money. They used to call the inflation they were creating deflation. Remember, I talked to Danny Blanchflower about this a few years ago. Then when it became obvious that the money printing was actually causing inflation, they said, well, yeah, but it's transitory. Now they're starting to realize that it's secular and long-lasting. And they're starting to say things like, we're going to do exactly what we've done here at the U.S. government by blowing trillions of dollars on white elephants, on boondoggles, and somehow that's going to cure inflation, which of course is just going to exacerbate inflation. This is a recipe for more inflation. So it's financial illiteracy mixed with state-sponsored propaganda over there at the major American networks.
And speaking of letting one rip, of course, Biden was reported in the UK press, the UK tabloids, as having let go a long, loud fart at the COP26. And that's kind of doublethink as well, is that, you know, the 400 private jets that arrived in Glasgow to, you know, of the elite, like Jeff Bezos, who, you know, blew off his giant rocket into space, you know, spewing lots of carbon and stuff like that. So they all met in order to blow some hot air into telling the ordinary schmuck out there how they're going to have to reduce their energy use in order so that the elite can continue living like trillionaires and quadrillionaires. So that is, you know, also part of this hot air, this letting it rip that he has done from his mouth. And then if we have war is peace, if we have freedom is slavery and ignorance is strength, we also have squalor is luxury, progress, or actually squalor is also progress, right? It used to be that for much of modern society, we've tried to progress the lives of all people, right? And California is the epitome of the progressive state, one of the most progressive states in the United States, and certainly San Francisco tells us constantly in their doublethink that this is the case for them. They are the most progressive state in the union, and that is contradicted in normal speak by the headlines. San Francisco luxury condos overlook city's worst squalor. Quote, I don't want to be afraid to live here. This is from CBS San Francisco. And we will buy them cute tents is something that Brian Romilly picks out from the article. Apparently these progressive people want to buy some cute tents for the homeless people. It's the highest concentration of homeless people under a new condo development whereby the apartments are costing $1 million and up. It's something like called the Artani. But the quotes in here are just, I think, a perfect representation of also the U.S. empire and how the U.S. empire operates as like this shining city on the hill. We're this great example, an exceptional nation. And yet everybody else looks at us with that same bemused look of you of like what you see here. So a one-way, one-block alley in San Francisco has neighbors living in constant fear and afraid for their safety. Willow Street between Van Ness and Polk currently has the highest concentration of tents in San Francisco. Quote, it's pretty consistently nerve-wracking, said resident Amber Lutzko. This just seems to be a safe space for chop shops and drug trafficking.
Right. Well, the whole idea of progressivism, that notion, politically speaking, was invented by hardcore capitalists. And we see it in California because San Francisco, Silicon Valley, is a product of the military-industrial complex that came out of the technology industry located there. J. Paul Getty certainly is a hardcore industrialist around the Los Angeles area. And the way to cover their tracks during the old robber baron days was to create libraries and social institutions and to do the social justice warrior thing, but 100 years ago. Well, now that American economy is no longer competitive globally and these big industrialists are essentially moving their money offshore, they're moving it into this giant $25 trillion managed by the four big accounting firms slush fund in the middle of Nowheresville where it can't be taxed. What's left is just the rhetoric. So you just have the people talking about the social justice warrior, but the capitalists that make it possible have left. So what's left is just squalor. So they're going to go down in the gutter.
I might add that this lava lamp looks like it could have come out of Haight-Ashbury, and the shape of a rocket, of course, also comes out of the West Coast, whereby a lot of the rocket technology was designed. And, the likes of Elon Musk fled from California recently in order to avoid their progress.
And where is he moving? To Texas, where the hardcore capitalism survives, the American style. And that's where you're going to see a lot of growth. Texas, Wyoming, that's where it's all going. It's leaving California and New York, those places that have been taken over by at least, well, I won't say it. I had a joke there, but I'm gonna leave good old Alec Baldwin alone in this episode.
Right, but in terms of comparing San Francisco to the U.S. empire broadly and the doublethink that you have to believe contrary to what you see with your own two eyes. You have to pretend that this doesn't exist. So we're told over and over and over by themselves, by the people who live there, that this is the most progressive city in the world. And we see absolute squalor and dystopia. The same thing with the empire, that we're like there to save everybody. We're there to rescue everybody. We're there to help everybody. We're indispensable. We're providing all sorts of security, blah, 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 blah. Well, when asked what the most egregious part of the street was, one of the residents said probably the threats of violence to us, other residents in the building. I've seen people physically fighting, and I myself was leaving once and a man approached my car yelling obscenities and threatening me, which was really scary, said a resident named Shannon, who declined to give her last name for privacy reasons. There was a guy who passed out in front of our door with a needle hanging out of his arm all day long, and our children had to walk past that.
Well, Joe Biden is the Boris Yeltsin of the American experiment. And, he is overseeing the collapse of a once vibrant society, and it's happening in the next 24 months.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.